Nobody falls in love on screen the way people usually fall in love in real life. Not really, because real relationships are often awkward, slow, unclear, sometimes emotionally confusing, sometimes boring, sometimes inconsistent. But in entertainment, one look changes everything. One moment creates destiny. One emotional scene becomes unforgettable. And almost every time, someone makes the first move. Usually the man. And after decades of seeing this pattern repeated across Turkish dramas, Hollywood films, Korean series, Latin American telenovelas, and global streaming platforms, a bigger question starts to emerge. Why does entertainment keep exaggerating romance? And why are romantic dynamics so often structured around male initiation? At first, it seems simple. Because romance sells. And honestly, that's true. Romance is one of the most powerful emotional engines in storytelling. It works almost everywhere, across languages, across cultures, across generations. People may disagree about politics, ideology, or culture, but emotional attraction is universally understood. That makes romance extremely valuable for entertainment industries. Because it instantly creates investment. The audience wants resolution, connection, tension, emotional payoff, and that emotional anticipation keeps viewers watching. But things didn't stay that simple. Because entertainment doesn't just include romance. It amplifies it, intentionally, and this amplification changes how relationships are portrayed on screen. In reality, attraction often develops gradually. People hesitate, misread signals, move inconsistently, take emotional risks slowly. But stories don't have endless time. A series episode has limited minutes. A film has limited runtime. And creators need emotional impact quickly. So entertainment compresses emotion. A glance becomes destiny. A misunderstanding becomes emotional catastrophe. A confession becomes life-changing. Everything intensifies. Because intensity creates attention. And attention drives retention. This is where romance stops functioning like reality. And starts functioning like emotional architecture. Every romantic scene is designed to hold audience focus. Long eye contact, music, silence, interrupted confessions, emotional distance, sudden tension. None of this exists accidentally. It's engineered for emotional stimulation. And this is where another pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The man usually moves first. Not always, but very often, across cultures, across industries, across decades. At first glance, people assume this is just tradition. But the real reason goes deeper. Because storytelling historically developed around very old social structures. For centuries, many societies positioned men as pursuers and women as responders. Those expectations became embedded in literature. Then theater. Then cinema. Then television. Eventually these patterns stopped feeling like choices. And started feeling natural, inside stories. Even though they were socially constructed over time. What most people don't notice is that storytelling conventions survive much longer than social reality itself. Society changes faster than narrative structure. That's why even modern productions still carry emotional frameworks built generations ago. And entertainment industries continue using them because audiences recognize them instantly. Recognition is extremely important in storytelling, especially mass-market storytelling, because audiences process familiar emotional patterns faster. The moment viewers see a reserved female lead and a determined male lead, they immediately understand the romantic framework. No explanation needed, and fast. Recognition matters enormously in commercial entertainment, especially television, because television competes for attention constantly. Every second matters. This is one reason male initiation remains so common. It creates immediate directional clarity. The audience quickly understands who is pursuing who is emotionally vulnerable, who is emotionally resistant. That structure generates tension almost automatically. But the real reason this pattern survives isn't only historical. It's emotional mechanics. Because pursuit itself creates movement. And movement creates story momentum. Think about how many romantic plots depend on emotional chase dynamics. Waiting, pursuing, confessing, protecting, winning affection. Without movement, many traditional romantic structures collapse. And historically, entertainment industries often assigned that movement role to men. Especially in dramas, including Turkish dramas. Because Turkish romantic storytelling frequently builds emotional intensity through restrained masculinity. The male character often appears controlled, protective, emotionally distant at first, but deeply committed underneath. That emotional contradiction creates tension. And tension creates audience attachment. Especially in slow burn romance structures. But things become even more interesting when we compare industries globally. Because although the pattern exists almost everywhere, its form changes. Hollywood often exaggerates confidence and charisma. Korean dramas frequently emphasize emotional vulnerability and longing. Latin American telenovelas amplify emotional chaos and obsession. Turkish dramas lean heavily into restrained emotional intensity. Different styles, same underlying emotional mechanism, and that mechanism depends heavily on anticipation, not equality. This is important, because real relationships usually involve mutual effort, mutual uncertainty, mutual emotional contribution, but mutuality is harder to dramatize quickly. Stories simplify complexity. That simplification often creates asymmetrical romantic structures. One active, one reactive, one pursuing, one resisting. It may not reflect reality accurately, but it creates clearer emotional storytelling. And entertainment prioritizes clarity constantly, especially emotional clarity. But soon another issue appeared. Audience expectation itself became part of the system. Because viewers don't only consume patterns, they internalize them, then expect them again. This creates a feedback loop. Audiences become familiar with certain romantic structures. Writers keep using them because they work. The repetition strengthens audience expectation further. And eventually the pattern becomes normalized globally, even across very different cultures. But things are slowly changing now. Not suddenly, gradually. Modern audiences increasingly want more balanced emotional dynamics. More emotionally active female characters. More mutual vulnerability. More equal romantic agency, especially younger audiences, because social perspectives themselves are evolving. And entertainment always adapts eventually, even if slowly. That's why newer series increasingly experiment with different romantic structures. Women initiating relationships, emotionally vulnerable male leads, more psychologically equal dynamics, more nuanced communication, less rigid gender positioning. But even as these changes happen, exaggeration itself will never disappear. Because entertainment cannot function exactly like ordinary life. If romance became fully realistic on screen, many viewers would lose emotional engagement. Real relationships contain repetition, routine, ambiguity, long periods without dramatic escalation. Entertainment compresses emotional experience into concentrated form. That concentration creates intensity, and intensity creates watchability. This is why even realistic dramas still exaggerate certain emotional moments. The audience needs emotional peaks. Without peaks, narrative energy drops. And entertainment industries know this extremely well, especially streaming platforms, because modern entertainment doesn't just compete with other shows anymore. It competes with scrolling behavior itself, which means emotional impact must happen faster than ever. That pressure pushes romance toward even greater intensity. More chemistry, more tension, more emotionally charged scenes, because emotional immediacy increases retention. And retention drives algorithms, which means modern technology itself now reinforces exaggerated storytelling structures. But the real twist is this. Audiences often know romance is exaggerated, and still emotionally respond to it anyway. Because entertainment romance is not designed to reflect reality perfectly. It's designed to create emotional fantasy. Not fantasy in the sense of impossibility, but emotional concentration, a version of attraction where feelings become clearer, stronger, faster, and more cinematic than ordinary life usually allows. And this is why romance remains central to entertainment globally. Not because it's realistic, but because it activates emotional imagination. At the same time, audiences are becoming more aware of these storytelling mechanics. People increasingly recognize patterns. The dramatic first move, the emotionally unavailable male lead, the delayed confession, the exaggerated misunderstanding, the jealousy arc, the protective behavior, the emotional rescue scene. These patterns are now deeply recognizable. And awareness itself is changing storytelling. Creators know audiences notice tropes now, so they either subvert them or intensify them deliberately. Both strategies aim to maintain emotional engagement. Because ultimately, entertainment industries do not prioritize realism first. They prioritize emotional response, always. And this finally brings us back to the central question. Do entertainment industries exaggerate romance? Absolutely, intentionally, systematically, because exaggerated emotion creates stronger audience retention. And why do men so often make the first move? Partly historical tradition, partly narrative efficiency, partly emotional structure inherited from older storytelling systems. But those systems are evolving now, slowly, unevenly, across different cultures at different speeds. The future of romantic storytelling will probably become more balanced, more psychologically mutual, and less dependent on rigid gender roles. But romance itself will never stop being heightened. Because entertainment is not designed to mirror life exactly. It is designed to intensify life emotionally. And as long as audiences continue seeking emotional tension, anticipation, desire, and connection, romance will remain one of the most exaggerated and most powerful forces in storytelling.